Hi everyone! Today we are going to talk about plurals. Let's start with this question. What does plural mean? Plural means that there is more than one of a noun. If you can't remember the meaning of noun, I've written it here. A noun is a person, place, or thing. So if we're talking about plurals, we're talking about having more than one of a person, place, or thing. In other words, more than one person, more than one place, more than one thing. There's different rules we follow to make a noun plural, and we are going to look at some of those rules now. The most common way to make a person, place, or thing plural is to follow this simple rule. Add s. Let's look at an example of a noun. This is a thing. It's a crayon. When you see the word crayon, you understand there is one crayon. However, if you want to make it plural, you just add an s at the end. And now the word says crayons. The s lets you know that now there is more than one crayon. Maybe there's 2 crayons, or 3 crayons, or 4 crayons. In any case, there are many crayons now that you've added the s. Here's another example. A noun does not always refer to a thing. Sometimes a noun can be a person. This is the word sister. When you see sister, you think of one person. Maybe if you're talking about 2 of your sisters or 3 of your sisters, and there's more than one sister, you would need to add an s. That lets people know that now you're talking about more than one. Remember, a noun can be a person, place, or thing. So far we did crayons, which is a thing, and sisters, person, but let's look at an example of a place. Here's a noun. Store. Right now we understand there is one store. However, if you are talking about more than one store, add an s on the end. Stores. Now our noun is plural. We understand there is more than one of what we are talking about. Adding s is the most common way to make a noun plural. But sometimes based on the spelling of a word, you can't just add an s. English has different rules for different cases. The next rule we are going to look at is add es if the noun ends in ch, sh, s, or x. You might think that's quite a bit to remember. However, if you're an English speaker, you will naturally hear when something sounds right and when it doesn't. I'll give you an example to show you what I mean. Let's look at this word. Box. When you see this word box, you understand you are talking about just one box. Now, if you're talking about many boxes and you try and follow the rule we just did a moment ago, and you add only an s on the end, let's see if that word sounds right. Boxes. I have many boxes. It didn't sound right. Let me say the sentence to myself. I have many boxes. Oh, I need an es. Boxes. I have many boxes. That sounds better than the first time when we just had the s. So if you're worried about remembering this rule, add es if the noun ends in ch, sh, s, or x, don't worry too much about memorizing it. Say the word you're trying to make plural, see if it sounds right. And if it doesn't, you might need to add that extra sound. In any case, let's look at a few more examples just to practice adding an es to words that end in these letters. This is the word branch. This is the word brush. and this is the word dress. We have 3 different nouns. They are all things, and they're all singular. There's just one branch, one brush, one dress. However, if we're talking about many, more than one, and we want to make it plural, we need to follow this rule. Add es. The reason we're adding es is because these nouns end in ch, sh, s, and we just did an example of ending in x a moment ago. But remember, you don't have to memorize this rule. If you try and just follow the typical rule of adding an s, it won't sound right. Branch. The birds are sitting on the branch. I want to say the birds are sitting on the branches. There's an extra sound in there. I need to add an es. This word says brush. If I try just adding an s, it won't sound right. I have many brushes in my drawer. Brushes. I can hear that extra sound. Brushes. And last, dress. There are many dresses in my closet. Well, that's just way too many s's. Dresses. You can hear that e. So again, when your noun ends in ch, sh, s, or x, you need to add es in order to make it plural, to show there's more than one. But you'll know. Let's erase and look at another rule. Now, if your noun ends in f or fe, then you need to change to ves. Let's look at an example of this. Here's a noun. It's a thing. It says leaf. There is a leaf on the ground. There's just one leaf. Now, if there are many, you don't say leaves. There are many leaves on the ground. It doesn't sound right. And so this is where that point comes in. You don't need to necessarily memorize these rules. Pay attention to what sounds right. There are many leaves on the ground. When I say leaves, I can hear a V. So that prompts me to change the end, the F or the FE, into a VES. Leaves. There are many leaves on the ground. That sounds a bit better. Let's look at one more example of this. Here's our noun. Shelf. I have a book on the shelf. It's a singular noun. I'm speaking about one shelf. But if I want to talk about more than one shelf, shelves doesn't sound right. I have many shelves in my laundry room. Shelves? Shelves. Oh, shelves. I can hear the V. That prompts me to change that F into a V and make it plural. Shelves. I have many shelves in my laundry room. So the rule again is that if your noun ends in F or FE, you need to change it to VES in order to make it plural. Okay, the next rule we are going to look at is change the Y to an I and add ES. Change the Y to an I and add ES. Notice that the I is not uppercase because we're speaking about in the context of a word. Let's look at an example of this rule. Here's the word baby. Unfortunately, with this rule, you can't use the trick about sounding right, because if you want to say more than one baby and you add an S, it's true it will say babies, and that sounds right. This is one of the rules you actually do need to memorize, because the word will still sound right if you add an S, but it's not following the English rules. Whenever a word ends in a Y, a noun I should say, and you want to make it plural so that there's more than one, you can't just add an S. You need to follow this rule. Change the Y to an I and add ES. Babies. It still sounds the same as before when I just added an S, but this is how it looks correct. Babies. Let's look at another example. Here is the word city. It is a noun and it ends in a Y. Right now there is one city. If I want to make it plural and I add an S, it will sound right, cities. It doesn't look right though. Following the rules of English, in order to make this noun plural, change the Y to an I and add ES. Cities. That's how you make it plural, and now it looks correct. Be careful with this rule because there is an exception. This is the word key. This is a singular noun. There's one of this thing. Now, if you follow the rule we just practiced, change the Y to an I and add ES, this is not correct. The reason we don't follow this rule is because now there are too many vowels in a row. If you have a word like key, where a vowel comes before that Y that you are about to change, don't do it. If you end up changing the Y after all, now you have too many vowels in a row. This doesn't look right. Anytime you want to make a noun plural that ends in Y, we normally follow the rule, change the Y to an I and add ES, except in cases where a vowel comes before the Y. If you notice a vowel before the Y, do not change it. Just go back to the regular old rule of adding an S. Keys. That is the exception to pay attention to. The last thing we're going to look at today with regard to plurals is the fact that some plurals are irregular. They don't follow any rules. English is a crazy language. Here are some examples of irregular plurals. And remember, irregular means does not follow the rules. This is the noun child. There is one child in the class. If you want to make it so that there's more than one child, you can't add an S, can't change the Y to an I and add ES, can't add ES, child is. This is an irregular plural. If you want to say there's more than one, you have to use a completely different word. Children. One child, many children. Here's another example of an irregular plural. One mouse. We don't say mouses. This is an irregular plural. If there's more than one mouse, then you say mice. There are many mice. In other cases, plurals don't change at all. What I mean by that is, here's the singular noun fish, one fish. But if you have many fish, you don't say fishes, you still say fish. Doesn't change. There are 10 fish, 14 fish, 100 fish. It's always fish. Singular and plural is the same form. Another animal that follows this rule is deer. There is 1 deer in the field. There are 10 deer in the field. Don't say deers. These are just a few examples, but be on the lookout for more. So in some cases, when a singular noun changes into its plural form, it's a dramatic difference, very, very different, and it doesn't follow the standard rule. And then in other cases of irregular plurals, the noun is the same, regardless of whether or not it's singular or plural. So be on the lookout for these rules as you read and write. We'll see you next time.